Learning Spanish easily and quickly is not a distant dream. Even if you want to travel to countries where Spanish is spoken, I assure you that you can achieve it in a short time. I want you to discover the wonderful world around us in Spanish and enjoy history, culture, and above all, amazing people. In today's video, we are going to learn the easiest words in Spanish language. These are the easiest words for English speakers because they are spelled exactly the same and mean the same in both English and Spanish. Wait a minute, I have a special gift for you at the end of the video, so make sure to stay until the end. Let's get started. For this video, I will use a resource called Informal Phonetic Transliteration. While not an official phonetic transcription, it will help us to pronounce Spanish words as accurately as possible. In English, it is said actor, whereas in Spanish you say actor. For example, the actor is talented. In Spanish, you would say el actor es talentoso. Actor. In English, it is said animal, whereas in Spanish you say animal. For example, the animal is wild. In Spanish, you would say el animal es salvaje. Animal. In English, it is said art, whereas in Spanish you say arte. For example, the art is beautiful. In Spanish, you will say el arte es hermoso. Arte. In English, it is said auto, whereas in Spanish, you say auto. For example, the auto is new. In Spanish, you will say el auto es nuevo. Auto. In English, it is said banana, whereas in Spanish you say banana. For example, the banana is ripe. In Spanish, you would say la banana está madura. Banana. In English, it is said bar, whereas in Spanish you say bar. For example, the bar is crowded. In Spanish, you would say el bar está lleno. Bar. In English, it is said coffee, whereas in Spanish you say café. For example, the coffee is hot. In Spanish, you would say el café está caliente. Café. In English, it is said capital, whereas in Spanish you say capital. For example, the capital is large. In Spanish, you will say la capital es grande. Capital. In English, it is said central, whereas in Spanish you say central. For example, the Central Park. In Spanish, you will say el Parque Central. In English, it is said chocolate, whereas in Spanish you say chocolate. For example, the chocolate is sweet. In Spanish, you will say el chocolate es dulce. Chocolate. In English, it is said circle, whereas in Spanish you say círculo. For example, the circle is perfect. In Spanish, you will say el círculo es perfecto. Círculo. In English, it is said color, whereas in Spanish you say color. For example, the color is blue. In Spanish, you will say el color es azul. Color. In English, it is said control, whereas in Spanish you say control. For example, the control is broken. In Spanish, you would say el control está roto. Control. In English, it is said doctor, whereas in Spanish you say doctor. For example, the doctor is kind. In Spanish, you will say el doctor es amable. Doctor. In English, it is said error, whereas in Spanish you say error. For example, the error is small. In Spanish, you would say el error es pequeño. Error. In English, it is said exact, whereas in Spanish you say exacto. For example, the exact answer is difficult. In Spanish, you would say la respuesta exacta es difícil. Exacto. In English, it is said family, whereas in Spanish you say familia. For example, the family is big. In Spanish, you would say la familia es grande. Familia. In English, it is said final, whereas in Spanish you say final. For example, the final match is important. In Spanish, you would say el partido final es importante. Final. In English, it is said hospital, whereas in Spanish you say hospital. For example, the hospital is far. In English, you would say el hospital está lejos. Hospital. In English, it is said idea, whereas in Spanish you say idea. For example, the idea is great. In Spanish, you would say la idea es genial. Idea. In English, it is said important, whereas in Spanish you say importante. For example, the important meeting is tomorrow. In Spanish, you would say la reunión importante es mañana. Importante. In English, it is said informal information, whereas in Spanish you say información. For example, the information is accurate. In Spanish you would say la información es precisa. Información. In English it is said problem, whereas in Spanish you say problema. For example, the problem is big. In Spanish you would say el problema es grande. Problema. In English it is said object, whereas in Spanish you say objeto. For example, the object is heavy. In Spanish you would say el objeto es pesado. Objeto. Objeto. In English it is said music, whereas in Spanish you say música. For example, the music is loud. In Spanish you would say la música está alta. Música. So you've learned some new Spanish words. Cool, but don't stop there. I have a special gift for you. A PDF with 50 super easy Spanish words to start speaking Spanish fluently right away. I will leave it for you in the description below. Speaking Spanish quickly and effortlessly is not just a far-off dream. Whether you are planning to visit Spanish-speaking countries or want to immerse yourself in a new language, I assure you that reaching fluency in no time is totally possible. I want you to explore the incredible world around us in Spanish, embrace cultures, rich history, and most importantly, meet amazing people. I will love help you improve your Spanish speaking skills. I am currently offering 1 or 2 hour sessions where I will intensively help you enhance your speaking, your listening, your critical thinking, and your writing skills in Spanish. I will soon have a website, but currently I am available through my WhatsApp and my business mail, which I will leave in the description below. For more information, feel free to reach out and I'll be happy to assist you.